Hello, everybody. The whole transportation sector needs to innovate. It needs to innovate to adapt and to reach the environmental impact targets reduction set by the European Union. Just talking about the maritime transport sector as the first example to come, let's share some facts and figures. 18,000 container ships, cargoes, bulk carriers, tankers, ensure 90% of the world maritime transport. Burning heavy fuels, these vessels emit as much as greenhouse gas as the whole Japan, which represent 3% of the planet's CO2. And this can only go worse with the expansion of the international trade, which is expected to be multiplied by 4 in the 25 coming years, according to the OCDE. Here is an example, among others to come, about the need to change, about the call for action. The very good news for us is that from long distance to the last mile delivery, there are plenty of new ways for consumers, for companies, to move goods for the good of the planet. So let's rethink together during this session how we can move good the good way. I'm Fabienne Lefever. I'm part of Capgemini Engineering. My company is committed to support its customers in their path to carbon neutrality. And I'm really happy to have the opportunity today to present this panel with golden panelists who are about to make the world change. I'll have the pleasure to animate this roundtable, and during this session, we will sail over the sea, we will drive and ride on the ground, and we will end up flying in the air. So let's welcome our first panelists on the stage and remote, Mattias and Nils. Hello, Mattias. Hello, Nils. Do you hear us, Mattias? Mattias doesn't seem to hear us. Mattias, are you with us? Ah, technology issues. Ça a coupé? So, should we skip then?
Hello?
Well, okay, sorry. So hi, Mattias, do you hear us now?
Very well, thank you.
Good to see you.
So glad to be with you.
Yes, same on our side. So Mattias, you are joining us remote from Bangkok, where you are focusing on sustainable mobility. You have been elected Sweden's most influential in sustainability, and you won the Lobbyist Award of the Year. And Nils, you are the CEO of Zephyr Borée. Zephyr Borée is a French startup that designed and is currently building disruptive cargo, fitted with wing sails to reduce the shipping industry carbon footprints. So, Mattias, of course, there's a real emergency to move from fossil to renewable energies for the goods transportation. How can we act? What is the solution? How can we accelerate on that?
Well, thank you for that great question, Fabienne. I think what we're doing now is very important. We're saying that change now is what matters. We're no longer interested in small projects or demos. We're interested in scaling it up, moving further, faster together. I think this cooperation is what it's all about. And that's why I'm so excited to be able to, through the Nordic Council, Nordic Talks, share with you some examples of how we from the Nordics can bring sustainable solutions to the table.
So what I'll do is that I'll let you maybe start the presentation you've prepared.
Thank you. So I'm excited about being able to share with you how we move goods the good way in the future with examples that we bring from the Nordic countries of relevance not just to us, but to, of course, our dear friends in France, with whom we have many bilateral, incredibly exciting agreements, and with the rest of the world. Because as Fabienne started out by saying, this challenge is huge. It is urgent, and the way we can solve it is by working more together. I want to take us through a journey starting with the smallest of good transports, moving all the way to the very large ones, with examples from around the Nordic countries that are going to be relevant for future discussions about how we can be more sustainable in our goods transport. My first example comes from my own home country, Sweden, way up north, where distances are large and not all that many people live. And services sometimes have not been perfect. But now, using electric autonomous drones, we are able to improve service at a lower cost for the user, a lower cost for the society, a lower cost for the global climate that we started out by discussing, and improved service for everyone. So that's a beauty that I would love for us to discuss how we can share with the rest of the world, particularly where distances are fairly big. And now move on to my home country of birth. I'm half Danish. And in Copenhagen, there is an incredibly a number of 40,000 cargo bikes used every day, transporting goods around the city, sometimes kids and adults as well in those cargo bikes. And that, of course, helps create a more sustainable and friendly city-urban environment. And at the same time, it helps Copenhagen deliver on the promise to be the world's first climate neutral capital by 2025 in just 3 years to come. Moving on from there, we move to Norway, which of course for many of us we know that Norway is top of mind when it comes to electromobility. It was several years ago the first country in the world where it's more normal to buy an electrified, a plug-in car than to buy a petrol or diesel car. And now when the rest of the world is trying to catch up, it's of course to Norway, where we reach out to learn from their experience on how to make electromobility a priority for everyone. And that also means that in Norway, you will find some of the best solutions for charging infrastructure, like the company Ease, which has an app-based solution, so you can be sure to always have the best renewable, sustainable electricity for your vehicle, so that it's green all the way through. It's also focusing on more in terms of robotized, automatized charging for the future, so that it will become even less of a hassle in the future. I'm also excited, moving back to Sweden, to see that just 2 days ago, the first fully commercial batteries for electromobility from Europe were delivered from the Energy project with Swedish Northvolt, showing that these batteries don't have to come from Asia. It can be done here in Europe and in the Nordics. I'm excited when we move to heavier goods to see Swedish Einride, which doesn't like to call its truck a truck. It's a pod, they say, because it's autonomous. It doesn't have any driver. It's fully electric, of course. And when it doesn't have any driver, you take away part of the cost for the transport. Some of the risk for accidents is reduced. And of course, there's also more room for the cargo. So that's a brilliant solution for the future, I believe. We also see with Scania as a great example that you don't always have to carry around the batteries in your truck, for instance. You can take the electricity from the road, which Sweden develops, for instance, with France in a bilateral agreement, or from up in the air, much like trains or trams that can be used for transporting goods as well. Then you have more space for the goods and you have lower cost for the batteries. When I'm in Oslo, I'm always excited to see the world's first fully emission-free construction sites. But also the construction equipment is fully electric, meaning less noise, less local emissions, and better for the global climate. And moving on from there, we start going into ships, where Fabienne started this discussion. Ships in Norway, you will find the great company Hike, that shows us that we can use waterways much more efficiently. And when we have these ferries, both for people and for goods, they can be, of course, electric. They are solar powered. And when and where legislation permits, they will also be autonomous, again, making sure that we reduce some of the cost for transport. And moving from the small ship to the really large ones, there is no way around Danish giant company Maersk, which already by 2040 is going to be climate neutral, net zero. And one of the ways they aim to do that is with sails and rotor sails on the ships. We'll discuss that more later. And this is great not just for Maersk or for the climate, but also for other companies, because ships like this one are sometimes Maersk and then sometimes they move on to other companies, helping the whole sector to become greener, faster together. Aviation, of course, has to also be factored in. I'm excited about, in Finland, seeing Finnish air company Finnair, together with sustainable biofuels producer Neste, making sure that we have sustainable aviation fuels, taking the guilt out of flying. Flygskam is no more to be a word that Sweden and the Nordics export. And of course, you will see the same in Iceland with Iceland Air. And while we're at Iceland, we realized that the carbon climate scientists, the IPCC and others, tell us that even with all these great solutions, if we multiply them, that's not enough. We need to also take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and out of the chimneys. And that is exactly what we see happening on Iceland with Carbon Recycling International and other companies. And that's a brilliant way of zooming up and ending up this brief presentation by saying that we have all the solutions needed, and when it's not enough to just be sustainable with transport, we can take care of that surplus carbon dioxide as well.
Right.
And the message from the Nordic countries, I believe, is that we are open for business, and when we do business together, we all win. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Mattias, for this inspiring sample of different solutions that we can leverage to reduce the environmental footprint we've got. Now, Nils, so you are one of the entrepreneurs making the change happen. So how do you see the future of a more sustainable maritime transport, and what's your contribution to it?
So, bonjour tout le monde. Hello everyone. So I will present you what we are doing at Zephyr Borée. So converting from PDF to... Okay, let's do it like this. So, c'est bon pour le son? I am a merchant navy officer, so in the past I used to work on cargo ships like this. And like you said, Fabienne, we have environmental issues in the shipping industry also. And so the maritime industry has to change, has to find new solutions. And more now we understand that a good part of the future of the shipping will be first to slow down and secondly to use sails. I mean using the wind energy again to propel cargo ships tomorrow. I co-founded Zephyr Borée 7 years ago. Zephyr Borée, which is a young shipping company. We are based in Brittany. Sorry, because all my slides are completely messed up, but... So we are based in Lorient, and we are the very first in joint venture with Jomâa, with another shipping company, to build a big cargo ship fitted with wing sails, allowing to save around 30% of the fuel consumption. So it's not yet 100%. For this, we have to slow down a little bit. But 30% is already a huge amount of fuel, because that kind of vessels will consume around 30 to 40 tons a day. So 30% is already fine. And so, as you can see, the vessel is already under construction in Poland, and it will be launched at the end of this year. Our first client, it can be a bit surprising, but is Ariane Group. So this vessel is dedicated to the transport of Ariane 6, the European rocket. So today I wanted to talk about another project, a new project we are developing. It is the first time I talk about it, so sorry if I'm not so fluent to explain this project. It is a little container ship. It will be operated between Marseille and Madagascar. And I will tell you more about the operation of the ship, but firstly, let's put apart the maritime side. I want to tell you more about cooperative. I want first to speak about Enercoop, which is a cooperative in energy supplying. They are supplying green electricity from wind turbines and solar panels, but not only. What I want to underline is their way of organizing. completely democratic, completely transparent, and also a big part of their clients are member of the cooperative. For example, myself, I am a client of Enercop, and I put 100 euros to be member of this big energy supplying cooperative. And in France, there is a kind of movement, I would say, around cooperative with, for example, Railcoop, which is a rail transport cooperative, Common, Telecoop, Mobicoop, and also other cooperatives. And all these cooperatives are organized into Les Licornes, which is a movement aiming to empower the cooperative movement.
If I may, Nils, where is the energy coming from, the one you are using in the cooperative?
You mean for Enercop?
Yes.
They buy some electricity to producers, and also they are buying their own wind turbines. I know also that they are encouraging, for example, a supermarket or a farmer to buy solar panels, and how do you say? In exchange, they promise to buy the electricity. You know.
Thanks.
They define themselves as militant energy. You know. So what I really like in these ventures is that there is not only an ecological ethic, but also a financial ethic and a social ethic. And so now you understand where I want to come. We are now planning to raise the first maritime transport cooperative. The name is Windcoop. And so we are developing this project for now 1 year already. We are announcing the launching of this project just right now.
Congrats.
Thank you. And so we will start with this first vessel. We have a first client, which is Arcadie. Arcadie, which is the main organic spices importer in France. So they are importing different kind of spices from Madagascar. And so we plan to start the building of this ship next year, and it will be operated in 2025. With this vessel, we are targeting main propulsion with sales, and we will be able to save around 60 to 65%.
60?
Yes. And I can tell you that we are a bit disappointed with this figure. It is because between Marseille and Madagascar, we have bad winds, bad wind condition, and this is why we are able to save only 60%. But if you take the same ships and you operate it, for example, between, let's say, Brest and New York, you can target almost 90 to 95%.
That's really impressive, 90%
yes.
reduction.
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, it depends a lot on the trade and the wind statistics you have. And so I will finish. So. As I told you, we are creating this project under a cooperative, and our goal is to gather the more citizens as possible in this project. So we invite you, if you want tomorrow to put 200 euros in this project, you can become a co-owner of this ship, and we are now launching a citizen crowdfunding. And one more time, I insist, we are not doing this because we don't know how to find money in another way. We are doing it because it is the reason that it exists.
Right, that's the way you want to make it happen. It's a
yes,
double effect, if I may say so.
Yes.
Sustainability
and also if ever
solidarity.
Here there are some shippers, you know, we invite you to join us in the cooperative, and you can decide with us in the way we are developing the project. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Mattias, I'm sure you've got plenty of questions to ask Nils. Please do.
Absolutely, je suis très impressionné. C'est vraiment quelque chose. So I want to dig deeper into this. I want to be part of this, but I want to first ask you how, because I think this is the #1 question when we get to solve climate change. How did you get from a great idea to actually making sure that this happened? How did you find the magic key to get this to happen?
It was a long story, it was hard, but most of all, shipping industry is a very capitalistic intense, you know, it's very expensive to buy a cargo ship, so the harder for us is to be able to, how do you say, to securize the market, and if we don't have a client ready to commit himself for 10 years or 15 years, we are not able to finance the ship because I don't have the millions in my pocket. So if we want to be able to convince private investors and bank, we have to have a client like Ariane Group, which is a very solid European industrial actor, and saying, okay, I want to transport my rockets with a sailing cargo ship, and I'm ready to commit myself during several years, and this was the key, obviously. And right now we are trying to develop other cargo ships, and it is always the same. We have to sign contracts, long-term contracts, and this is the... So we need commitment from the industrial actors. The good idea is not enough.
Right, so it's really the commitment of all for the change which enables to make it happen.
Yeah.
Any other questions on your side, Mattias, maybe to Nils?
Yes, I'm so glad of that example that you brought up, Nils, because we've been speaking a lot. I showed many examples, and you are a shining examples of how to be a first mover when it comes to delivering sustainable transport of goods. But as least as important is the first mover in demanding and buying the sustainable transport. And that gives us all a role, whether you're a very big company, a municipality, or even just an individual who start asking, well, how did you transport that? The thing that I bought. So that gives us a great role, and I'm so glad that Nils pointed out that clearly to us.
Sure, and you're so right, Mattias, in what you were just saying. Mattias, one question to you. So you're living usually in Sweden. How come are there so many examples of alternative mobility solutions in Sweden? You've shown to us plenty of examples. Why this range in Sweden specifically?
Well, I'm excited to see that a lot of things are happening around the world. So it's clearly not just the Nordics. But I think that 3 reasons that stand out is if you visit the Nordic countries, you will notice immediately that sustainability is top of the agenda, top of mind. That really helps us get it into the business perspective as well. Secondly, the Nordic countries are small markets, open markets, and we aim to make a difference. And when you want to be competitive, you have to be cutting edge. You have to be leaders, not followers. And in this time and age, as you started out by saying, Fabienne, one of the really big challenges is combating climate change, especially in the transport sector. So it's all logic for the Nordics. And the third that I want to bring up is that between small and fairly like-minded countries of the Nordics, it becomes very natural to cooperate. And if there's any issue where cooperation is clearly the key, it is the global challenge of climate change. So that's very well situated for a Nordic solution.
But reacting on what you were saying, how do you both, Mattias and Nils, think that we could improve globally the way countries and companies cooperate to foster the development of innovative solutions?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
How could countries and companies, you think, improve global cooperation to foster the development of innovative solutions? You were just saying that you made it happen because you found a partner,
yes.
A big company really willing to invest with you and to make it happen. How could countries contribute to that as well?
By encouraging the IMO, the International Maritime Organization, to strengthen the regulation. And right now, the IMO is doing the job way more than we could expect 5 years ago. The regulation on polluting emissions for cargo ships is strengthening a lot. And from next year, 2023, every cargo ships in the world will have to slow down or to use different kind of fuels. And this is the problem when we are talking about changing systems. It is that when we compare with the price of the diesel oil, the classic diesel oil, you know, you cannot compete with this magical product, you know. There is too much energy in 1 liter of diesel. And it is just so cheap, so we need a strict regulation to make it more expensive and to be able to make other solutions.
So we need to force this change.
Yes.
Mattias?
I agree with Nils, and I also think that when we focus on the global cooperation, for instance, the global climate negotiations, or even the European work, it becomes hard because if everybody has to agree, it's often a bit too slow for the challenges that we have ahead of us. So I'm looking forward to much more of coalitions of the willing and coalitions of the doing, where individual companies like the ones Nils represent and the ones I presented reach out to each other, and bilateral, trilateral, five-lateral, whatever that's called, countries that want to make sure that things happen faster, get their act together and start cooperating in that sense. So smaller cooperations, but more to the point so that we can move further, faster together.
Right, indeed. Thanks a lot, Nils. Thanks a lot, Mattias, for your presentation today. I hope it has been inspiring for all. And after having sailed over the seas, it's time for us to put our feet back on the ground. And I will welcome the new panelists on the stage. Yes? Hello, Clara. Hello, Moez. You're Director of Business Development at Volta Trucks, willing to revolutionize the last mile logistic by delivering full electric trucks. Moez, you're founder and CEO of Infinite Mobility. Infinite Mobility is a startup that completely develops next generation lightweight vehicles, small vehicles, powered by solar energy for the last mile delivery and urban mobility. My first question to both of you is why is this last mile delivery a major stake for a sustainable future and cleaner cities? Why did your company choose to go for this last mile delivery, maybe?
I go first?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Bonjour à tous. I think the key point for us, and the reason why we went for urban distribution. I see your face. Is the sound okay? Can you give me a thumbs up? Yeah? Okay, cool.
I think I misspelled your name. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm used to it.
Can you correct?
Yes, Carla.
Carla, I'm sorry. I said Clara, I think. That's why I was puzzled. Sorry for that, Carla.
No worries. So I think the reason why we went for urban logistics is because our truck is fully electric. This was the ambition, bringing a full electric vehicle to market as soon as possible. And the technology that is ready for this specific use case really is electric vehicles. I think it's very important for me to state, maybe as an introduction, and I think that will also be the key point for me as a conclusion is that there is an energy for each use case. You know, the transition is not electric, it's not hydrogen only, it's a mix of energies, and this is the key point for me today.
Indeed.
Moez?
Yeah, I will do a transition from what Carla said, but I will look more into the numbers. As per today, 30% of all greenhouse gas emissions come from transportation, and 70% of all car trips and vehicle trips, they are less than 6 kilometers. And
70% less than, you said 6 or 6?
70%. Okay, it depends on the countries, but I think globally it's around 70% of all car trips, they do less than 7 kilometers. So this is what we call the neighborhood mobility, okay? We cannot, so the challenge without powering the mobility, which is basically energy conversion. I mean, you take fossil fuel or another energy and then you transform it into mechanical energy. Without powering the mobility with a clean energy, it will be impossible to achieve the Paris Agreement on climate change. Okay, so we have to find ways on how to power the mobility with the clean energy. Solar is one solution, hydrogen is another solution. There are a lot of solutions. There will be multiple types of solutions. But in our case, we did focus in the neighborhood mobility because usually we don't require much energy for that. They represent, as I said, 70% of all car trips. And I think with our vehicles that I will talk about later on, we can cover all this neighborhood mobility free of charge using solar technology.
So I was about to ask both of you to let us know more about the solution you are proposing in your two companies. Maybe Carla, if you can go first.
Absolutely, and maybe I should complete my question in addition to what you said, Moez. We think that the key opportunity for us to deploy a solution is very much CD distribution. So in fact, if I talk about numbers as well, I think I rushed in a little bit. There are currently in Europe 230 low emission zones, what we call low emission zones, with different deadlines when it comes to diesel bans. In France, it's 45 low emission zones, same thing with different agendas. And that is actually a third of trucks, vans, cars, yes. Currently what we call the parc roulant. So that represents 10 million vehicles. So again, major opportunity. So it is within this opportunity that we wanted to come to market as soon as possible. We are a Swedish company as well. I'm the first employee. We are now more than 370. So fantastic experience personally, if I can share some insights. Again, our ambition was to come to market as soon as possible. We started from a blank piece of paper, and this is what is our strength, really, because we removed 90% of mechanical spare parts, compared to any diesel equivalent. We've developed the cabin to be as safe as possible, but also very much as ergonomic as possible for truck drivers. So again, quick numbers, 350,000 truck drivers missing in the industry. The industry is very masculine anyways, so only 2% of drivers are women, an average age of 55 years old. So knowing that the e-commerce has raised by 78% at the back of COVID, our customers have literally no solution. There's a major shortage of trucks, so 340 days from order to delivery. That's what we call it. So again, major opportunity. We are now deploying specifically in Paris. So that represents really 90% of our pipeline. We are launching what we call the Volta Zero. So that is a 16-ton purpose-built electric vehicle. And then very shortly after this, we'll be launching the 18-ton. So again, these are big trucks. And then we'll deploy...
That's not the same weight as yours,
yeah.
Indeed.
No. So yeah, we can basically...
We're complementary.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. So it's 8 tons, 10 tons payload. So these are major loads, both in ambient and refrigerated. So your pharmaceuticals, your foods, your beverages will be hopefully very soon delivered in Volta Zeros. But we'll also target the e-commerce segment, so with 7.5 and 12 ton, which are basically the multi-drop assets, so home deliveries.
So Moez, thanks, Carla.
Yes.
Moez, on your side, so it's not the same size.
Not the same size, and we have a different approach in also we took it a more holistic aspect, not just the product itself, but the way how we operate also. It has to be sustainable within the 3 dimensions, the environmental, the social, and the economic aspect. So we come up with different I would say, technologies or ideas we're implementing. So the first that we developed a new solar technology specifically made for the mobility for vehicles.
So if I may, Moez, you've shown to me the images of your car.
Sorry?
But you've shown to me the images of the products you were developing. So you've got solar panels on the roof, on the rear, on the doors. If you can maybe explain.
So we had to maximize the area where we can have solar cells. We have to reduce the weight of the vehicle to make it very energy efficient. This is, at least from engineering point of view, how we achieve that. But we also designed a low capex microfactory. This is very important if you want to scale up fast, but also to have social and economic impact in the markets that you're going to serve. So these low capex factories, they can produce not big production capacity, but it will create local jobs in the markets that we're going to serve. It can be in Latin America, it can be in Australia, and so many other places. So as I said, we look into the mobility as a life cycle. It's not just the product itself. Okay. And we are developing two products, one for businesses for cargo, last mile cargo delivery, and one for passenger transport. Hopefully we have a booth. I can show you the photos, and we made very beautiful designs. So we are in dialogue with big logistic companies in Europe, like DB Schenker, Domino's for pizza delivery, and some other customers to deploy. So this is basically what we do.
Right, okay. Great. And you were saying you see complementarities between you two companies. Yes. So maybe, Carla, first, you told me that you saw clearly interesting complementarities, and yet that you were already working on that, if I may say so.
Absolutely. And maybe I did put a lot of focus on the product, which is a star, but I agree very much for customers to make the switch to electric vehicles from an energy that they've known for decades and that is very flexible, so diesel mainly. It's very important that we support customers through the journey, not only with the asset, but also with all of the ecosystem that gravitates around it. So the key questions are usually around charging infrastructure, so that we provide as part of our subscription model. The insurance of the truck, everything going from maintenance to service to technology, upgrades, service. Essentially, we don't think that the future is necessarily owning vehicles, especially for assets that we don't know nothing about the second life or what's the residual value. So the idea is very much to delegate the risk to us and remove any anxieties. So now to the complementarity question. What I know is that some of our customers are trying to remove real estate from their picture, if I can say, because the more central you are now, the more expensive it is, and logistics companies such as DB Schenker, such as Geodis, XPO, need lots of meter squares, right? So what they are thinking about and how it's changing is that they are going more and more towards what we call urban hubs, right?
Yes.
But the beauty of our vehicle is that it's large enough to be a mobile hub by itself. So I have, for example, one key customer that is I can't say too much because we will release that soon, but a massive retailer that is basically looking at integrating multiple Volta Zeros and using them as mobile hubs within the city. So essentially the vehicles are running around the city.
Mobile warehouses.
Yes, mobile hubs, warehouses, whatever.
I know that.
Yeah. So in fact, we'll be partnering up with some bicycles and some electric cake providers, bikes providers, sorry, to then collect, pick up, and deliver the end user. So again, our goal is to remove as many small vans from the city, so avoid congestion. I think that will make everyone happier. Obviously, less emissions, and think about new use cases if we can. So now is the transition. Now it is an opportunity for our customers to rethink about their operational model. Why not?
And you see the cooperation, the complementarity, sorry, not, and cooperation as well, between your solution with this mobile hub, probably, because you can then ensure the last mile delivery.
Yes, because I think the logistic, it is multi-steps. You have the last mile, you have the middle mile, which is basically the last 100 kilometers from, for example, the train station or the harbor up to the city. So we see the solution from Volta. It is more than a mile, middle mile solution from the warehouse, the factory, up to the city. While most of the, now the trend is most of the major big cities, they don't allow any more trucks of big size to get into the city. So you have to use small vehicles for that. So we have to work in what we call the multimodal logistic, that you transfer goods from large trucks like the Volta within either with this moving warehouse, then you don't need to own the house. This is a new idea coming from the 10 minutes delivery business. Or of course, you can have a hub, and then you have a fleet of small vehicles that they will do the last mile delivery. Okay, so this is more about the life cycle of the logistic aspects. This is how it can be. I mean, the complementarity.
For sure. I had a question for you, Carla, because usual hurdles for EV adoption is the charging infrastructure, which is not spread enough, the lack of battery range. So, what is the solution you offer, you found to overcome that?
First of all, I think our offer is to educate customers, public operators, anyone within the ecosystem. Because you talk about anxieties, there are also some false ideas about the technology, one, and the existing use case, and how our customers are actually operating trucks. But that's the same case in passenger vehicles. I mean, we always have this anxiety of, this is not going to be enough range, or I'm not going to... It's just an adaptation. It's a change management. So first of all, our customers do urban distribution. So under 120, 150 kilometers, our trucks are packaged to have around 200 kilometers of autonomy, or of range, sorry. And the use case is that trucks and operators leave the depot around 4 or 5 or 6 a.m., okay, and they come back in the afternoon, early afternoon, so around 2 or 3 p.m. And what that means is that it leaves you, 12, 14, 10 hours to charge, right? And that means that the majority of use cases, our customers have enough time to charge on what we call AC charge, so alternative current, so slow charge. And that is in the depot. So in fact, we don't rely on public infrastructure. And we think that right now in Paris, with the Total bid, the charging infrastructure that's going to be installed is for cars only. What we require is a 22 kilowatt AC, or some customers do need to have an extra mileage or an extra kilometer, extra kilometers, or second shift, and that is possible with that truck, okay? I hope this answers the question. As I said, this is within the subscription model. So what we do as part of our advisory hat is that we customize the charging infrastructure for our customers.
Okay.
It's not only the charging infrastructure or the hardware, it's the software, it's the civil engineering that you need to think about, it's potential grid upgrades. I mean, every time it's a project, and saying, I'm going to install charging infrastructure in my depot, it doesn't happen like this, because there's so many steps that you need to take, and we have the expertise.
Right, so this really shows that to make it a success, you need to take in consideration all the ecosystem. You were talking, Moez, about micro factories. On your side, you're talking about providing...
yes, and if you want to make a big impact, you have to consider what what infrastructure existing. So for example, for our cargo bike, solar cargo bike, with the solar cells that we integrate, you don't need any more recharging. So basically, we eliminate the need for infrastructure. But even so, there is one important infrastructure that we have to take advantage of it, at least more in the consumer space, more in the small businesses, is just the outlet at home. Okay, we have to design vehicles that is still compatible with this existing infrastructure, and this is why we went into lightweight vehicles, because the maximum battery capacity around 6 or 10 kilowatt hours. So with a charger of 2 kilowatt, you can recharge it in 3-4 hours fully at home. But when it comes to the hurdles that we faced, of course, capital for any startup, they need the capital to grow. The supply chain, there is a problem with the supply chain. The good brands, they are overbooked. You have to deal with tier 2 suppliers with the quality that you have really to work hard to work on that. The regulation aspect and taxation, at least in our case, we want that the European Commission and countries, they create a new class of vehicles for the vehicles that they produce their own electricity. It's unfair for us that we have very short supply chain, clean supply chain of energy directly to the vehicle, while some other EVs, they are EVs, but they continue to be powered by fossil fuel. So it doesn't help. I mean, this is unfair. It's a false story, I would say. Okay.
That's the big question.
Yes. For the infrastructure, as I said, we are resilient to the infrastructure. Even in Africa, where sometimes you don't have electricity, we received a call from an NGO in Botswana. They want to have our vehicles to transport kids over a distance of 10 kilometers, and they don't have energy at all over there, besides wood. And you cannot use wood to power vehicles. Okay. So that's briefly. I don't want to take more time.
I would have liked to be able to go on discussing with you, but I need to be the timekeeper there. Thanks a lot for this discussion. I hope this was interesting for you to listen to them.
Thank you.
And it will be time to take off with Sébastien.
Bonjour.
So, Sébastien, you founded in 2012 an innovative company with a very, very poetic name, because it's called Flying Whales. Your mission is to unlock remote areas using airships for the lowest environmental footprints. So I think we are all really curious to hear about what you've got to tell us during the 18 remaining minutes, introducing to us everything about this adventure you're in and why airships are an interesting solution, quite a special one, to transport heavy goods. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, all of you. So I will try to introduce you. Well, I've been asked, please present the solution, but also how you can make it and also how it can contribute. So I'll try to do all of these in the next 15 minutes. And first of all, just show you a 2-minute video which actually explains what does the product. So if you can launch the video, please. The music, so I could comment just a bit lower. Thank you. So the idea of large capacity airship, I mean, we know that Zeppelin used to build some 100 years ago, but you see it had to, and it was carrying actually more than 90 tons, so we are carrying 60 tons, it's not that impressive, but they had to land to load and unload. Planes have to land to load and unload. In our case, our very first customer asked us, you cannot land where we work. So you have to develop a solution that actually can load and download from stationary flight. And everything comes from that. If you have just to keep in mind one thing, it is this idea. Because, I mean, not only it can allow to, for instance, extract some wood from remote areas without building roads and tracks, but also, if you don't have deep water ports, you can extract containers and deliver it straight, not to the port because you don't have any port, but straight to your customer. Another example, if you need to transport a high voltage tower, well, actually, you know, the helicopters are limited to something like 4 to 5 tons. Well, you can actually carry a 60-ton pylon. And same thing for the wind blades and so on. So the idea here is to have not only to have, of course, an electrical airship without any impact on air, but also as it is loading and unloading from stationary flight, no impact at ground. So you can see some additional operation we're working on. This is for French Polynesia to connect the islands without having to build deep water ports again. And of course, it's a solution that might be very useful for humanitarian application, either for exceptional or recurrent operation. This is something we're working on with the World Food Programme. And ultimately, you will see that the solution is not only a large capacity airship, but also, actually, sorry, a triptychal is the airship, the air duct which catch it at the ground and bringing inside the hangar or outside the hangar for its operation, and the airship has a range of operation of several hundreds or several thousand kilometers around its base. So if we go back to the presentation now, please. Okay, so you understand that clearly our purpose statement, our reason of being, as we say in France, is on 2 legs. Number one, to contribute to unlock landlocked areas for the economical development, and number 2, to significantly contribute to the reduction of the environmental impact of cargo. This solution, as you can see, is absolutely huge because we need a lot of helium to balance the 60 tons. One very important point, we don't consume helium, obviously. Helium is kept inside the airship. And maybe we don't have time for technical aspect, but keep in mind it's not a blimp, it's a rigid airship, which means it's at a skeleton under the skin. And under the skeleton, you have 14 helium cells, which keeps the helium and allows to carry the load. Where it comes from? It comes from an issue we have in France, and we started to react on that since 2012. The issue is the fact that the wood industry is the second contributor to the French trade balance deficit. So we had to do something about it. We want to build more in wood, but we cannot extract the wood with a reasonable cost, or additional wood with a reasonable cost, and without environmental impact. So this is where we had to develop something to solve this issue, and again, be able to build more wood. So we've been through a long process. I will not detail that, but the long process was, first of all, de-risking between 2012 to 2017, de-risking all these aspects of that, because every contributor was quite scared about having new airship. Everyone was terrified, even myself, the government, the shareholders, the industrial companies. What are we doing? So it's been a long way, de-risking the technology and a deadlock, the financials, the market study, the consortium, the authorization for certification, because it's going to be certified like any aircraft, and so on. After those 4 years, we actually launched the project, set up the shareholding structure, launched the program development, public financing, and so on. So this project is co-owned by France and Quebec government. It's, let's say, half public, half private project. You can see with public shareholders like French government, Région Nouvelle-Aquitaine, Office National des Forêts, private shareholders like Air Liquide, Aéroport de Paris, Bouygues, and so on. And what is interesting on this slide, and of course, the Canadian government, through the Quebec government, having a 25% share of the project. What is interesting is you can see we're developing actually 2 companies, because very quickly it appeared that developing a solution was not enough. It's how you're going to operate it. And so we are actually, in the meantime, developing flying wheels industry with this, let's say, the Airbus of the large capacity airship, and flying wheel services, the operator, which is as well the Air France, but also the Aéroport de Paris, because we will have to operate 150 bases worldwide, and this is why Aéroport de Paris is a very strategic shareholder of this project. So I explain you the 2 companies. We will have 3 production sites, 1 in the region of Bordeaux, 1 in the region of Montreal in Quebec, and the 3rd one in Asia. And as I just said, 150 bases worldwide to operate. And you can see that this project is developed exactly as a plane would be by Airbus or by Boeing, with a huge industrial consortium that you can see on your right. So what are the applications for that? Well, you could see through the video that, we can support, and actually we have signed more than 20 agreements with some players from the wind industry. It's a very interesting market for us, because it's one of the markets where we are even cheaper than the trucks, is what you can see on the diagram on the right. So the idea is to put the 3 blades of a wind turbine and bring it straight from the port to the mast. What is also very interesting about this is, for a lot of farms which are becoming quite old, we have to replace the blades. And again, we don't want to have any more transportation at ground, because it has a huge cost and a huge impact on the environment. Same thing for replacing the blade. We can support our customers. You saw in the video the example of the high voltage tower, but we have many other examples in the construction. So a high voltage tower is very often something very difficult to somewhere very difficult to access. So how we do that today? We use helicopters, very large helicopters, but these can only carry 4 to 5 tons. And usually the weight of a typical high voltage tower is something like 50 tons. So it's 10 rotations of helicopters. You can imagine the cost, and you can imagine the environmental impact. In our case, we put it in one piece. And what is also very interesting, in this market, for instance, in France, RTE is installing 200 pylons per year, but also removing 100 pylons per year. And to remove the pylon, same thing, we can take it in one piece. Another very interesting example of what we can do with this large capacity airship, well, the cargo hold is something like 100 meters long, 2 meters wide, and 7 meters high, which means it's as long as a football stadium. So we had the idea with our partners, and in particular with Indonesia, well, we could develop a building inside this, and we could carry a real hospital. A hospital can be bring in remote areas. So this is what we're working on these days, not only for Indonesian islands, but also for the great north of Canada, Africa, and so on. Of course, you can imagine the different kind of humanitarian application on the different places in the world. And just some last example, because you just see some individual application. What is interesting is the mutualization you can do for a country. So for instance, in French Guiana, not only we will do some industrial operation, but also we will unlock Maripasoula and some 6 or 7 cities like this one. What does it mean? And this is where you see the real purpose of flying wells. Today, Maripasoula has a fantastic economical expansion, but it is separated to the capital Cayenne by jungle. So for the containers, they have to go up to the north with trucks and then on pirogues on the river. And then you have 3 problems. Number 1, it takes 3 days. Number 2, you have a strong environmental impact on the river. Okay. And number 3, insurance company refuse to insure the pirogues. In our case, it's not 3 days, it's 3 hours. Of course, the cargo is insured because the airship is certified and no environmental impact. Some example regarding the great north of Canada. And this is why actually Quebec is part of the program. In most of the great north villages, you see we have what they call First Nations, population that have been pushed up there and who lived in terrible conditions. And it's becoming more and more terrible because they are connected with ice roads, and ice roads are getting frozen less and less months in the year. So the cost of the freight is increasing very high, and also problem with the healthcare and so on. And last example is what we're currently discussing with the Indonesian government. Indonesia has more than 1,000 islands with activities, and they will not develop 1,000 airports or 1,000 deepwater ports. They already have a huge program of 40 airports, but that's not 1,000. So same thing, the idea is to connect all their island with this solution in order to offer them a continuous developments, but without environmental impact and at very low cost. And ultimately, that's the plan of the French and Canadian government, the deployment with Aéroport de Paris of 150 bases worldwide, you see, in the different continents for the application of this solution. Thank you very much.
Parfait. Thanks a lot, Sébastien. I don't know for the others, but really convincing demonstration about the interest to go for this solution. I hope it was inspiring for all as well. So thanks for listening to all our golden panelists. I hope this has given you ideas about how each of you, consumers, company, can act for a more sustainable future while still moving goods. Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye.